All right, everybody, welcome to the second ever interview that I've done for my YouTube channel. And today we have Kory Mackinnon, who has, to me, been a little local hero, or at least celebrity, because I've heard his name about 1,000 times from one of my best friends. And Kory is a Canadian real estate investor. He's got a YouTube podcast, a TikTok, an Instagram, all that kind of stuff. He does a lot of, I believe he said about 5 businesses, and he also has a lot of other things going on. I don't know, honestly, don't know a ton about Kory, but I know that he's the real deal because I've looked him up and I've once again heard his name 1,000 times. So I'm going to actually just let you, Kory, introduce yourself to the audience and let everyone know who you are.
Sure, Don. Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for having me on your platform. And it doesn't matter if it's your second podcast or your 200th. I'm looking forward to being on here again at some point for a part two. But yeah, I guess I'm young at heart. I know I'm older than you, but started off in the corporate world. That's where I think we have some familiar friends, some friends in common. I used to be the VP of operations for a student painting franchise company.
That's
So
where it is.
yeah, we'd take young,
Yeah.
hungry university students that had no business experience, and we'd teach them how to run a six-figure. I think they're actually going to have a student this year run a seven-figure business. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I stayed. I ran a franchise myself for a couple of years, and I literally ended up staying at that company for 17 years. Loved it, but
Wow.
started buying real estate on the side, and that was my own, escape out of the golden handcuffs because it was a great position, paid well, great culture. I still go back and speak to them and that sort of thing, but like real estate was starting to take over. And as soon as I was able to retire myself at 36, people started coming out of the woodwork asking, like, how did you do it? Like, what did you do? How did you, like,
Right.
I want to learn what you did,
Yeah.
they all hated their jobs, but I think everybody wants to build up that nest egg and have like time freedom and be able to do and travel and make decisions on their own clock. So that's when I started like coaching and mentoring people unofficially, and it was more like started off as like an accountability program, and I'd help them with their businesses, and if they want to learn about real estate, we can do that too. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, I just got really laser focused on like, I do real estate really well, and I can teach people how to do this as well. And I've
Yeah.
done almost every strategy, dabbled in a little bit of the furnished rental world as well, which I'm sure we can pitch and catch on here today. But
Yeah.
it's just been a blast, and especially during COVID, we've really grown things. We were growing at like 300% for the past 3 years. So it's been
Wow.
great.
Yeah.
That's always been my goal, is to impact people and to help them, with their finances so they don't have to struggle.
I, awesome intro. Love all that. That's I'm really looking forward to this conversation now because I personally have never bought a piece of real estate yet, not even for myself personally. But my game plan is to buy enough real estate to be able to cover my expenses that I have to be able to have the option if I want to leave my job. However, I absolutely love what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis right now. For anyone who's listening and doesn't have the update, I'm currently the head of data for Superhost Labs, which is a short-term rental investment fund, which I absolutely love. And it's great, but I want to build that nest egg as well and continue to build up my portfolio over the years. And so I'm going to use this as an opportunity just to learn more, right? But my whole thing is Airbnb data, and I know how to handpick which homes are going to make the most amount of money. The one thing I don't know how to do is ensure that I'm getting the right home. You know what I mean? Or the joint venture deals, or however it may be done, right? Or the mindset you need, or like the time it takes to get to these points, and all these different little nuances when it comes to the real estate side, right? Um, but one thing I do want to mention, and I don't know if Matt's ever told you this. So, Matt Andrews, one of our common friends here, he mentioned that you were his goal, I believe. I'm not sure if this is a thing I should tell you or not, but he said that if he wanted to get to a point where you would invest with him, and that would be like a way that he has like proven himself over the years. And I think that might have happened. And so he always kind of uses that as like a success metric, which I thought was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's always great when, the student can, kind of level up with the mentor on some sort of playing field, right? And it's
Right.
he's taken his education and his growth really seriously when other people kind of dabble in it, right? I'm sure
Right.
you see that on your end as well. Like people might, kind of inquire or whatever, and then they don't really do much with it. It's like, and then you have other
Right.
people that take the information and just like absolutely go and run with it as fast as they can. Those are the kinds of people that are great to work with, and that would be Matt Andrews to a T.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like that's really the goal, right, of a coach is for the student to outperform you, right? Because like you're giving them every single last piece of information that you possibly can to be successful, right? Like every single mistake I've ever made, but they're also learning from other people and they're also learning from their own mistakes. And so ideally, if they're really consuming everything you're saying, they should eventually be able to pass you, right? So that's an awesome thing there. So with your real estate, like how long did it take you to be able to get to the point where you could leave student works?
Yeah, great question. And again, in the beginning, like I had a very busy job. I was working 60 to 80 hours a week. So I was really just looking for a place to kind of park my income,
Right.
like my money every single year. So I was picking up 1 to 3 good multifamily properties in London, Ontario, over the period of 5 years. So, at year five, just kind of doing this part time, it was definitely a possibility. And then in year six, I was like, we just started having some changes in our lives, right? We started having kids,
Yeah.
and the expectations of the company were even higher than ever.
Right.
I was getting further away from different offices and airports and everything, so it was getting harder and harder. I couldn't work the bachelor lifestyle anymore.
Yeah.
It wasn't my company either. So basically, in year six, I was able to do it. If I knew what I knew now, I could have done it in probably half the time, but some of it does need to marinate. Some of it is skill set. Like you need time to develop certain skills,
Right.
certain intuition, some of it's HR, like just making decisions on people, right? That does take
Right.
practice. So you can shortcut things, but you can only shortcut them to a certain extent, or else you might be falling off a cliff at some point.
Yeah, you can only move as quick as your knowledge allows you to, right? So, but I mean, you're saying if you could potentially do it in half the time. What do you think you would have done differently if you were able to do it in half the time?
Yeah, if I were to go back, and again, nobody has a time machine, so it's
Right.
interesting to talk about this, but it's also part of the journey that I also wouldn't really change what I did either. Definitely would have bought more quality properties and figured out ways to collaborate with people. I think when people get into business, or not everybody, but a lot of people, and this is very common in real estate, it's kind of like a me mentality. Like I want to, I'm going to keep this stuff to myself. I need to buy the property myself. I need to have 100% of it. But as you realize that the bigger deals, I mean, you're collaborating with the company as well.
Yeah.
Um, you know, that's how some of the biggest deals and some of the biggest businesses are made, is by, partnerships and collaborations and things of that nature. So bought more, collaborated sooner, and learned how to raise money faster as well. So, it's good when you're making good money, but at the end of the day, you can be one of the wealthiest people in the world, and you can't buy all the real estate in the world. So you're going to run out of funds. You need to know how to like raise funds from other people. And
Right. So if I were to like the idea there is joint venture deals, right? Like figure out how to do joint venture deals with other people's money sooner so that you can scale faster without having to use your own money. Is that right?
yeah, joint ventures, or like maybe a syndication where you raise the funds and you still own the asset, but for the 5 years as you're building it up, there's more partners involved. You buy them out, kind of thing. There's lots of different ways you can do it. That's kind of the cool thing and the confusing thing when it comes to the joint venture or partnership model or collaboration. There's multiple different levers you can pull on and massage, or not pull on, and some people just get tripped up over the mechanics of it. And
Right.
that's why actually at the end of this month we're actually doing a training on raising money and how to partner properly with people, just because we want our own students to learn this, and as well as other
Yeah.
people that want to attend to. So it's going to
Well,
be awesome.
this is actually something that I've been trying to figure out myself, because I don't have all the money in the world. And I want to be able to scale a little bit faster. I know for a fact, our people that I know that know you have been able to raise money, and that has helped them scale. And so I'm at this point where I understand Airbnb data extremely well, right? And I kind of mentioned this already. And what that allows me to do is be able to, I can take an entire city, break down that entire city, figure out which property is the best property to purchase in the entire city that's going to give you the best cash on cash, right? I can do it. And right now what I'm doing is I'm buying all these properties, or I'm identifying all these properties for my job, right? And we're going out, we're buying them, and we're getting the returns, and like we're hitting our numbers, and it feels really good because like those are the numbers I'm predicting that we could do, and then we're hitting them or exceeding them, and it's like that feels great, right? But now I want to get, I want to be able to get like one, two, three myself, but I need other people's money to be able to do that, right? So I have the skill to be able to find the place. I just have to find the deals, right? Then I have to connect with the people that have the money. And so, but most of these deals and almost all of them are going to be in the States, right? So this is kind of, we're both Canadians, but all of the best short-term rental deals are going to be in the States, right?
Yes, I watch I watch some of the examples on YouTube of like Row Built and all these other guys, and it's
Yeah.
this is my version of entertainment. I don't have cable. I just watch stuff on YouTube and Netflix,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, just some of the numbers on some of these places, and it's like, wow. Or other companies that are buying up Airbnbs and just take them to the next level of on
Yeah.
stay in some of these places, right? So
Yeah. They're all on like different levels now. You know what I mean? Like Airbnb is now hitting it just it's the way that we put together the homes for the company is nothing like how I would put them to how I put them together when I had my own. I had about 15 in Chicago. And so just like seeing how well we're doing them now is amazing. And it's just like I know we're just gonna keep upping the game, right? But I want to raise money and get into deals with people to be able to buy these properties. I'm not saying I want to open up an investment fund, right? Because I know the amount of nuances that come along with that. But I really want to be able to find somebody like yourself or like Matt, and actually Matt and I are working together on this right now. We're trying to raise money to be able to buy a couple of properties down in the States. And so, if you were in my position, what advice would you give me to be able to raise the money to be able to do that? How would you go about that?
well, I think you're doing a lot of things right here, John, for sure. And one of the great things that you're doing is like you have some of your own platforms, and you don't need to have 100,000 followers to be able to get the message out about what you're doing, right? So you've got a platform. I was checking out your content as well today. You put out solid information to people, and you give away a lot for free. So I think that's awesome as well. Um, so you can always kind of shift your message just a little bit and let people know, like, hey, if you like the content of what we're doing here and you're actually interested, or if you'd ever consider doing some business with a person like myself, who's I'm not sure how many years into this you have, John, but I mean I heard your name probably like 4 or 5 years ago at least. And to partner with someone like you or invest with you, I mean, there is a lot going on with what you do and what I do. But sometimes people, they just make really good money at their day job, and they don't want to quit their day job. They don't want to put in all the blood, sweat, tears, midnight oil, whatever you want to call it, to
Right.
invest in real estate, find the best deals, find the best possible Airbnb houses to buy. Like, they don't have the time for that. They're just like, hey, I got 100 or $200,000 or $300,000 or half a million. I just want to go park it with you, get me a good return, better than what I can get in the stock market, or whatever, right? If they like the model, which a lot of people do, like to travel and they like the hospitality industry, very few people, maybe my dad doesn't like to travel anymore, but very few
Yeah.
people don't like to travel. So it's a great story. And I don't think travel's going anywhere. Even when the world's locked down, there is still traveling going on, or like there's this hyped up demand. So um, long story long, you could just point some of your own platforms towards it a little bit, and just continue to showcase yourself as that expert and authority. I was even going to think, just out of the box here, like the company you're working with, I don't know your relationship with them. Like, did they bring you in as a consultant, or how did that happen? Because maybe there's an opportunity there. Like, if you left, maybe they could replace you, but if you bring enough value to a company, maybe there's some equity stake you can negotiate in the future, or shares or something of that nature, or maybe that's already in place. But I look at the Tony Robbins model, or even what Grant Cardone's starting to do now. Like, I was part of Tony Robbins' Platinum Partners like Inner Circle program for a year,
Nice.
and I was always wondering, I'm like, how does he have, like, he'd stand up in front of the room, he's like, I'm a part of 105 businesses and they're worth $6 billion. I'm like, okay, I know he's been doing this for 40 years, but still, that's a lot of businesses to be a part of. But I
Yeah.
mean, when he links himself up to a business, he blows it up in a good way, right? They come to his
Right.
trainings, he provides great insight. They want to learn about business, they go to his business courses. They need help with mindset, they come to his courses to learn about mindset, get that straight. So that's why he's a partner in all these different businesses, because he can provide so much to them. Same with Alex Harmozy, right? He's
Yeah.
acquisitions.com. He can use his softwares and his past experience and everything else to dramatically increase somebody's business and double it or triple it, right? And they get a share of it. But
Yeah.
the owner of the business always wins more than he does. He just wants to impact a lot of people and do this on a big scale. So I don't know if that helps at all, but
No, that's like honestly wasn't the exact way that I thought you were going to go with the answer, but I really like the way that you thought about it because you're thinking about it like, how do I find people with money and bring that money in? And using the platforms that I currently have, I can continue to present myself as the expert and bring the deals to these people that have the money, that have the day jobs, that don't do want to do the work, and get them to invest with me on these properties as I continue to move forward. Right.
You might need to put a little bit of targeted marketing behind it. I'm not an SEO expert, but I mean, or just get in circles, get in rooms where people, your ideal avatar of, let's say, someone in their 40s or 50s, they have a lot of disposable income, they're at their peak earning years, and they just want to put that money to work. Maybe it means getting a membership at a golf course so you can just mix and mingle with more people, racket club, tennis club. Even if you're not good at these things, I mean, you just want to get around more people, get out to conferences where people do have more disposable income, just so they know what you're up to, right?
Right.
Host maybe events that would invite those types of people out. There's lots of different ways, but I think with your growing platform, you may just need to pivot a little bit and throw the message out there in a tasteful way, maybe once a week, a couple times a month, let people know what you're doing, and it's amazing what can happen. So
Yeah. So that's okay. So I love that advice. And then my next thought onto this is how would you set it up? Right. So I know there's joint venture deals, there's syndications. You also have to, without opening up a fund, they have to be friends and family quotations. And so it's like, if you're in that situation, how would you go about it? Would it depend on the deal itself, or do you have a sort of a standard way of putting things together?
yeah, it might be difficult to get into it here on the show, but
Yeah.
plus we're dealing with a different country. I haven't really invested in the States all that much, although I have looked at investing down in there. There's going to be some legalities and different rules in different areas, but just keeping it as simple as possible. If you can have as few people funding a deal, that's always great. I mean, Matt can tell you some stories about when you really just pieced together certain deals and there was like way too many cooks in the kitchen and it wasn't
Yeah.
going so well.
Yeah.
Um, but there are the right avatars out there, and there's even platforms out there that might help you, raise the funds to do the deals you guys want to do anyways. So, I mean, I'm always looking to put my money to work as well. So, I mean,
Yeah. There you go.
we can always have a conversation. So you got your first conversation right here.
That was the whole point of this podcast. I'm just trying to talk you into it.
You know,
But anyways, okay, so that's good. I figured that was going to be the answer. There's a lot of nuances, and you kind of have to figure it out depending on the deal. And
yeah, and it's you want to make sure you're having the conversation in the right way,
yeah,
well with people for sure,
yeah,
and
I think
understanding people's personalities. I think it's important. Like so many people just try to present a pitch deck or something just one way. Whereas like if you realize there's analytical personalities, there's social personalities, there's more reserved personalities, there's really outgoing personalities, and it's very important to match and mirror whoever you're in front of, so you can really relate, right? Because people like themselves, and they can trust people that are more like themselves as well.
right,
Um, but yeah, there's a lot to it. Even just people's action thresholds can be different, right? Some people have a very high action threshold. They're the ones at an event, they might be rushing the table at the back to be one of the first people to sign up. And then you have people that have a low action threshold that need more encouragement, more data, more information just to make a decision, right? So
yeah,
yeah, it's funny. I was talking to one of my students a couple of months ago, and she's like, Kory, what, we have these amazing deals, and like people are reaching out to me, and some of them just say yes really quickly, and some of them just they don't. Is there something wrong with me? Like, is there something wrong with the deal? I'm like, no, I know what you're doing, what you're all about. I know what you're saying. I've seen your pitch deck. It's just you got to realize that people's personalities are different, right? And you
yeah,
can't sell one way to everybody in the world. You really got to be able to speak to all different personality types too.
yeah. That's a great insight. Actually, that's something that's very easy to forget when you're trying to raise money and you're talking to people and you think you've got like the best possible thing, and someone's kind of just says no, and you're kind of confused why, right? You're like, but it all makes complete sense, right? Like the deal makes complete sense. Why would you not move forward? So
Yeah,
that does
for
make a lot of
sure.
sense. With your coaching that you do you find that you're doing a lot of like mindset coaching? I mean, you're speaking about Tony Robbins. I've gone through a couple of Tony Robbins events, volunteered for a couple of them as well,
Oh,
read a whole bunch
cool.
of books on it too, right? And like actually Matt was the one who Matt and Cass got me out to my first Tony Robbins event naturally. So, like the whole mindset of things really helps anything in life naturally, right? But I'm wondering that when you're coaching these people, is it sort of like a 50-50, like half you're teaching them about mindset, half you're teaching about real estate?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like everybody that comes in, we do custom coaching, right? So there's a lot of one-on-one to what we do there, John, and which I'm sure you do one-on-one work as well. So everybody comes in with different skill sets, different experience, and different goals, different background, different experience, different baggage, all sorts of things, right? And they're this magic recipe. So some people have a pretty strong mindset. I consider myself to be pretty strong-minded, or have a strong mindset. I've kind of experienced a lot of things at a young age, moved a lot when I was young, played sports when I was young, traveled a lot, got to compete at a high level, made mistakes, made some great wins, ran businesses when I was young. So and it's great to learn these things when you're young, when your brain is more, plastic and just more of a sponge anyways. But
Right.
I think the challenge is when somebody hasn't had all those experiences, or they're somewhere in the middle, then we need to make sure they're getting the right reps in. And mindset is really overused sometimes, but I think it's just the whole umbrella of everything that happens on the inside, right? Like
Right.
success in life and in business, it really is an inner game. And that could be like how you manage fear, how you manage stress, like what do you think about, like what are the questions you ask yourself? Like we all talk to ourselves, right? And
Yeah.
some people have healthy conversations, and encourage themselves, and some people it's unhealthy and they're discouraging themselves. But once they can get that, straightened up, it is a big part of what we do. I don't know if it's 50-50, but as somebody goes along further and further with us, like I was just talking to one of my students the other day, he's been with me for 3 years. We don't really talk as much about the deals he's doing because, to do deals or for you to do another, find your company another property to buy, it's like kind of becomes a little bit boring after a while, even though we're excited in it. It's just kind of
Right.
going through the motions and, putting in the reps and putting the numbers in the spreadsheet and making a decision and vetting things and whatnot. But it's not all that difficult. Like people think that like being really successful in life is like, oh my gosh, it's going to totally blow my brain. There's some magic secret. It really is about consistency and having a lot of focus and not being distracted, saying no to more things, saying
Right.
yes to only the things that matter. um, so we talk less and less about the nuts and bolts and more about like them getting stuck on something, right? Or they're getting in their own
Right.
way. So
We
it's
can.
interesting. We kind of need it in the beginning of a relationship, and then we also use it more down the road. And in between, they level up their skills of doing the actual thing. But
Mhm.
then I find they go back to mindset in the end, anyways, to get unstuck on something or go to the next level, right?
Right. That makes a ton of sense, right? Because like once you, I feel like there's only so much that you can learn when it comes to, let's say, just real estate in general, right? Like once you've learned all the different nuances of it, maybe there's little subtle differences between one dealer and another dealer, something that you've never experienced before, but the vast majority of it you have a good grip on. And so then there, moving forward, it's all just about, like you said, consistency, right? And taking that next step and leveling up and leveling up. And the leveling up part's hard. I found myself when I get to a stage where I feel like I've kind of hit the top, I always know I can do better, right? But getting to that stage, maybe was like a lot of work and I feel like I got to the top, but then you're like, oh, there's another stage I can go, you know what I mean? Or like there's another mountain I can climb, right? And so, and then that new mountain is always harder than the previous mountain, but it's a new challenge and you're trying to reclimb it. It's definitely interesting. And like one of the things that as you were explaining all this, what I was thinking about is, I've in the past 10 years, I've learned a ton, right? I've learned a crazy amount more than I did the 20 years prior to that. And now my brain is kind of set up in this way where if something happens to me, I almost have like a tool that pops up into my brain or an automatic response to help deal with any situation that comes up, right? Like a problem
Yeah.
happens, my brain goes, cool, new challenge, right? Or I get nervous about something, I go, okay, cool, I'm excited about this thing, right? And it's just like
Yeah.
a constant like response, trigger response from all these things that I've learned about little tricks that you can use, and I call them tools. There are all these little
Yeah.
tools, and they just sort of show up.
I like to call it a reflex, right? So you've retrained yourself to now it's reflexive. Like you don't really even have to think about it. I don't think about problems. I'm like, yeah, challenge. Let's just get through it. Even if I have to drive right through the brick wall going 100 miles an hour, like I'll find a way up it, through it, around it. Doesn't matter, right? So
It's always a
yeah, it's
solution.
become reflexive for you. And I will I'll not really challenge you, but I'll throw out this caveat of like it gets harder the higher you go up the mountain. I think it's always going to be hard work, no doubt, right? It's going to be fueled by passion and hunger and people that are very willing and very coachable. But if you surround yourself with the right people that are also leveling up too, and it shows you what's possible, that expansion becomes a little bit easier for sure. And maybe there's just some things that people continue to say yes to that they're actually like, it doesn't make as much sense anymore. Sometimes we outgrow certain
Right.
businesses or relationships or whatever, and they're actually working like brake levers in your life. And once you take those off, you can go further faster for sure.
Yeah, that's the whole idea of saying no to certain things is a tricky one because I remember when I first heard about it, it was like, okay, I'll just say no to certain things. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And you catch yourself going, should I say no or yes to this? Right? You're like every single thing you then evaluate. You're like, if I say no to you, I remember thinking that it was like if I should be saying no to like everything because I thought, oh, it's not important enough. It's not important enough. And eventually I hit a point where I was like, no, I need to say yes. I started saying yes to everything. And it was hard to
Then you
find
have
that.
influencers on the internet like Gary Vee and Grant Cardone saying like, just say yes, like, and say yes to everything. Well, they also, there should be a big asterisk beside that saying like, say yes, because he's got a team of 100 people or 100,
Right.
200 people that he can just go, okay, you do this and it gets done. Right.
Yeah.
I think in the beginning, yes, people should say yes to just, helping, you think of any business and how it's kind of grown from scratch. You do stuff for free. You're just willing to help.
Yeah.
I mentored underneath my one of my landlords for a while just to kind of learn some ropes and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I painted some of his apartments at cost because I just want to get closer to him, took him out to lunch, those sorts of things. So that gets you to one level. But then once you get to a point where you're starting to cut your teeth or you have cut your teeth, it's okay to say no to the good stuff so you can say yes to the great opportunities, right?
Yeah.
Because whenever you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something that's potentially better, or there are better things out there. It's just a matter of like, will they fall into your lap at the same time? But too many people are saying no to everything, right? And they've sit at home and never got anything done. So
Yeah.
it is a balancing act, but
Yeah.
the more I think sometimes it takes someone to the point of being overloaded or to the point of a little bit of burnout to go, okay, I just got back from vacation, right? So now I'm looking at my calendar going, okay, does that appointment still make sense? I might
Right.
tighten that one up or eliminate that, right? So
Right.
question everything that's coming into your calendar as well. It's important to really, be fierce about your time for sure.
Yeah. That's I, I couldn't agree more. So the one thing that you just said there perfectly explains it for me because, like I said, I used to say no to a whole bunch of stuff, thinking that I didn't want to miss this magical opportunity that was going to land in my lap, right? But that wasn't the case, and so I started saying yes to everything. And I think my sort of process that I've created for myself now is I say yes to most things, and then once they become like once I've become a burden or too much or I don't need it anymore, because I've built up other things, I stop doing that thing, right? So I can give an example here that's kind of a clean example where I offer these two different types of reports, right? One is a market analysis report, gives you all the information for one city, right? And that one it takes me about a half an hour to do, and I make a good $500 off of that one, right? Then I have this other one that I used to do for people, and it would take me like an hour, hour and a half, a crazy amount of mental strength to like get right because there's so much pressure to get right, and they charge about $200 to do that. And I used to do those all the time because people would ask me to do them. They're like, "Can you do it?" I'm like, "Well, I have the time, and it's $200. Like, I'm going to do it, right?" And I would do them all the time. And I got to the point where I didn't have enough time to do those $200 ones anymore. And it didn't make sense for me to do anymore. And I was selling more of these $500 ones. And then I picked up some other bigger clients and I was like, I just have to say no now. I'm like, I've gotten to the point where it doesn't make logical sense and financial sense for me to be doing these reports, right? But at one point it did. And I think and if I didn't do them at that time, I would have never gotten to where I am now, right? So like that's kind of the way I look at it, where it's like you're saying yes to these things that are kind of smaller, but they're leading you to getting to like these bigger things, as you continue to keep going.
Yeah, like 5 years ago, when I let the world know I was starting to do just like real estate coaching and mentoring, that was my gig. That was what I was doing, even though I'd been mentoring people for 20 years at that point.
Right.
Um, we get a lot of free requests, right? People are reaching out, they want to call, right? So I'd take all these calls and I was like, okay, these are really taking over my evenings. I got kids. So then I just picked one night. I had 4 call slots and that was it. They were still free. And then I went from being free to not being free. And then I started
Yeah.
selling things. And, we always evolve up, for sure. And maybe this can be a filter that you can use as well there, John. Say yes to the opportunities where it can be one to many. Like I say yes to podcasts because again, like you were saying, it can be out there for 5 years from now. Someone can still watch it. It can
Right.
impact people. 500, 1,000, 10,000 people can watch it. People get great messages. You can always get a copy of it and clip it up and do other things with it. Speak on a stage. Whenever you can impact, a group, to me that's important. And as you level up, like it's going to be a certain minimum, right? Like I'm only going to
Yeah.
talk in front of groups of whatever 5,000 or
Right.
the podcast has a certain number of downloads, but those are definitely opportunities we're saying yes to. Or being in a room where it's a smaller room, you want to be in that room with people that have kind of been to where you've been, or maybe there's good like cross pollination opportunities. That was the cool thing about Tony's inner circle was the average income was 350,000 US, right?
Mm,
And at the time, I wasn't at that level. I was kind of getting close,
right.
multiple six figures, but I wasn't there, and they were talking US dollars as well. But
Right.
literally 1 year in the program, then I was like, I was above average. So
Yeah.
just from seeing what's possible and thinking bigger and getting around a better environment, right? So environment's huge, like who you surround yourself with, the people you collaborate with, mastermind with.
So here's another little one I want to challenge you on this. And it's funny because like I've challenged Matt on a couple of these things too. So
Go for it, man. I love
I
challenges.
fully agree with the surrounding yourself with the right people, right? But at the same time, I have a really strong group of friends from high school, and they're all idiots. You know what I mean? Like across the board, none of them are like this. None of them are going to Tony Robbins events. Nothing, none of that, right? But that's
Yeah.
like that's my home, right? Like when I'm with those guys and we're all hanging out and everything. And so I always sort of challenge that where it's like I fully agree to an extent, right? It's like I like to get around the right people, like the people I work with on a day-to-day basis, 100% high level. I love being around them. Like having these conversations with you is amazing, right? Listening to audiobooks, listening to YouTube videos, like sort of consuming everything, but then I'm still spending a bunch of time with my idiot friends and even my family. I wouldn't call my family idiots, but like they're also not in this similar sort of mindset, right? So it's like I spend a lot of time with those sort of
Hopefully
people.
they're not listening right now and
Yeah,
they're
I hope they're not.
um,
No one's listening. I didn't call anyone an idiot other than a couple friends. So, but
yes, I know where you're coming from, and I still have people that I connect with from back in high school as well. I definitely don't connect with them as much. We used to hang out all the time, right? And then they were always like, "Why are you working so much? Why now you're a business guy and like you don't have time for me or whatever." I'm like, "Dude, you can do what I'm doing too." And I'm like trying to become first generation wealthy here. It takes
yeah,
a bunch of work because nothing has ever been handed down to me. So
right,
other than obviously food and a good
basics.
environment and roof over my head and all that sort of stuff. But was given the basics, right?
Yeah,
Um, and find a way to still connect with them. Maybe it's like you do a couple annual events, right? So then again, it's like you don't have to do all these one-offs with your high school friends. You can do like some annual events, bring them all together. They'll probably like that anyways. And then but you might find that over time that like I don't drink very much anymore, if at all. Sometimes I did the 75 hard challenge. I went for 18 months without a drop of alcohol. I don't like, waking up hungover or like losing any kind of productivity time because I was
right,
hanging out with those high school buddies, right? So,
yeah,
and you never know, like some of them might be evolving and leveling up, and some of them might be even, going down a level. So,
yeah,
but if you can make it more collaborative and encouraging and always showing them that there is a little bit more they can chase after. It'd be interesting if there was the odd carrot there a couple times a year. Still hang out with your idiot friends, but also try to be a source of inspiration. That's what great leaders do, right? Is
yeah,
they lead from the front of the room. So
yeah,
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just don't. I know my sense of you there, John, is that you're not hanging out with them every single day, every single week. So
no,
you got to be
no,
selective
definitely not.
as you go along.
Yeah, definitely not. That's a great feedback, and I think one of the things that I do love the most is I have seen some of them A couple of them like actually ask me questions about certain things or try and level up in certain areas. And like that's where, if you just live your way, you know what I mean? You just live your life your way and you don't really care what they say, or you don't feel like you don't have to worry about being judged by that or anything. They're going to start noticing, right? And they're going to start asking questions and they're going to start being curious about it. And it's like the amount of times I've had people say like, I want to go get an Airbnb. You know what I mean? Like I want to be in this Airbnb game. It's
Yeah,
like
go
you can do
binge
it.
on my YouTube channel, right? It's like that's what I have it there for you guys to see
Yeah.
if it's something you really want to dig your teeth into.
Yeah. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Um, your 15 midterm rentals that you got in London and Sarnia. Do you want to tell me a little bit about those?
Sure, man. Let's talk some shop talk here.
Yeah.
I'm literally right across the street from the first one. I'm in this condo complex. There's 16 condos on this side, like low-rise townhouses, row homes. I remember, being reached out to by a realtor because I said, hey, I kind of like this one condo complex. This was 8 years ago. It's right across the street from like my wife's first house she ever bought, right? My wife was kind of like the 30-year-old, no, not really 30-year-old virgin, but like, I mean, she's Italian, stay at home till you're married kind of thing. My Big
Gotcha.
Fat
Okay.
Wedding or whatever ever movie.
Yeah.
So this was her first place that she bought, and it's good, right? The maintenance fees are low, really well run, condo corp. So I saw one hit the market. I just asked my realtor, I'd like to put an offer in on it. It made sense as a regular rental back then, and then so we closed on it. We're getting close to closing. I think it was like within a week of us actually getting the keys. And he said, look, I just got a call from Golder Engineering. They've got a big building in Mississauga. You've probably driven by it. If you can have this place furnished within a week, doesn't have to be fancy over the top, just beds, tables, TVs. Don't worry about the art and the knickknacks. They're willing to sign like a 18-month lease, and the rent is double what it would regularly be. And I said, again, that was an opportunity I said yes to. I said, yes, we'll figure out a way. I've never done
Yeah.
this before, but it can't be that complicated. We were contacting, furniture wholesalers and all this
Yeah.
other stuff. We put it together. It was a great rental. And at that point I was hooked. There's a lot of that kind of work coming into Sarnia. I mean, I heard a stat this year where there was 7,500 workers coming to town and there was only enough room to put up 3,500 of them, right? So
Oh
about half.
wow.
So we're kind of in this niche market where, we don't need to be on the Airbnb platform. We can kind of just say, hey, we've got these apartments that are furnished and we get 50 to 100% more rent for them. We still bring in a cleaner, once a month,
Yep.
but, we're not doing the turn and the burn. I see what some Airbnb operators go through. It's really a messaging business, a cleaning business, and a customer service business. So I've
Excellent.
tried to
Yeah.
minimize all those different things, being a busy dad, multiple businesses. So for me, it's kind of like the sweet spot. And I have used AirDNA to do my analysis just to make sure, like, hey, if I did want to put this on Airbnb, or, is there enough demand in the city? So I think it's awesome as well to make sure that you got to have the data behind you. Like
Yeah.
you can't make all your decisions on gut emotion and feeling. Like you got to have the numbers. Numbers don't lie, for
Numbers don't
sure.
lie.
So
Know your numbers. Yeah. All of that for sure. That's actually pretty awesome. Lucky, nice opportunity. You know what I mean? And it's great to hear too. And yeah, you were mentioning this before we even got on the call, and instantly what I was thinking is I'm so happy you're doing midterm rentals and not Airbnb, because Canada just there's just not enough demand in Canada for short-term rentals. There just really isn't, right? Like it's not a tourist location, and every area that is a tourist location has restrictions against it, right?
yes.
Or you've got to be in like Muskoka, right? And then when you get to Muskoka, the real estate is so high you can't even compete, right? And you're not going to cash flow at all off of those properties. And like I'm sure there's spots in Alberta and all these different little pockets, but if we're talking about Ontario, there's just I personally believe, and I know there's a bunch of people that are doing Airbnb, but I personally believe that there's just not enough money being made on the Airbnb properties for it to be worth anyone's time in Canada. And we can run through the numbers. I've gone through Hamilton, I've gone through Guelph, I've gone through Mississauga, I've gone through London, Grand Bend. I've gone through so many different places because I really wanted to do it myself in Canada. But I just realized that it's like literally not possible. There's just not enough money to be made, and
Well,
especially
yeah,
with
it
sorry
is
go ahead.
possible, but it's just, it's got to be worth your while. The juice has to be worth the squeeze for
Yeah,
sure.
Exactly, right. And like you can definitely do it, but are you going to make any real nice money off of it like you could, right? Which is why I always head over to the States, right? Because if you have one, I mean, if you're going to pick up like one, two, three properties, right, and you get them all in the same area, if you have one good cleaner or two good cleaners and a handyman or two that you can rely on, you can do everything over the computer, right? You have a couple people in person, you pay them well to make sure the property's done properly, and you can run it. You know what I mean? Like you really don't need to be there. You can just check on it every once in a while, and you're just gonna get better returns. There's everyone in the United States travels within the United States, right? But anyways, a little bit off topic there.
And
You're
how much bet, just to educate myself here a little bit, like
Yeah,
what kind of X factor would it be? Like if you're thinking of I don't know, like so for example, I've got a 2 bedroom in London, Ontario. It brings in 2 grand to 2,500 a month. So if that was in a different city in the United States, are we talking like a 3X factor? It's just that much better. Like how
yeah.
could something perform? Or maybe you need a house or something like that. But even then, like how much better are the numbers in the United States?
So it's going to depend on what location that you're in, right? Like naturally,
Yeah.
that's like the very first part of it. If you're, I mean, so right now, if you go over to Detroit, which is, literally, I can almost see Detroit from where I'm standing.
Okay.
If you can rent out a place for about $1,000 a month, which is going to run you about $12,000 a year. You're going to have maybe another $5,000 worth of expenses, and you can make $30,000 a year in Airbnb. So you can potentially make about 5 to $10,000 of clean, free cash flow. I know those numbers don't add up to 5 to 10, but I'm just rounding up and kind of trying to
Yeah,
be
if you have two of
conservative.
them or whatever.
Yeah, exactly, right. And so that's an area where it's like it's very clean. I know a guy who has a lot of them in Detroit, and I've seen his numbers. I know his books. I've gone through the data, and so very easily you can
Downtown
make
Detroit's underrated, man. It's really come in
super
its own the
underrated,
past. Yeah,
super
decades.
underrated. So like that's what I would call like the average or the norm in a lot of cities. If you're looking at a two-bedroom or a one-bedroom or something along the lines. Once you start getting into like the larger units, you really have to be selective, extremely selective as to where you're getting it, how many bedrooms and bathrooms it has, but not really just that. It's the amenities that makes the difference, right? So what features and amenities that you have within that property that allows you to hit that target number that you're trying to hit, right? So as an example, in downtown Nashville, there's hundreds of four bedrooms all in downtown Nashville in that little zip code, right? And
Wow.
I've pulled up the data and I can show you this data, but I've gone through it on quite a few videos. And the top properties, there's a bunch of properties at the top that are all doing around 200,000. There's a bunch of them that are doing around 150,000, and there's a lot of them doing 100,000, and then like the lowest grouping is in like the 50,000. And so what I always teach people is I'm telling them that there's a reason why those homes that are made, there's a reason why some homes are making 200,000 compared to 100,000. And what you have to do is you have to be able to figure out what are the features and amenities that are causing to make 200,000 over 100,000, so that when you go and buy a property or rent a property in that area, you know that you're going to make 200,000 and not 100,000, because you would hate to pay
Yes.
for rent expecting to make 200,000, you're only going to make 100, right? Or buy a place there. And like the differences are like a rooftop patio with a city view and an indoor pool and a gym, but it's also brand new luxury and it's got an extra bathroom, and the way it's designed is extremely well done with great photos, right? And it's like that's sort of the little nuances. Now, the my company, like what we look for is 20% revenue to purchase price when we're going to go buy a place. So that's our standard. So if the home costs 500,000, it has to make $100,000 a year, right? And if it makes $100,000 a year, we can get about a clean 15% cash on cash. That's sort of like our aim, right?
Okay, so it's a 20% with some expenses, so 20 turns into 15.
Well, it's just so it's not 20% cash on cash we're looking for. We're just looking for the revenue to be 20% of the purchase price,
Okay,
right? And then be that's like it's sort of like a general rule, because then after all the expenses and like the purchase price of the home and everything, you tend to walk away with about 10 to 15% cash on cash
okay, got
for
it.
whatever you put in.
And
Um,
I'm sure there's properties that do even better. So
Yeah, and then we're just talking about the cash on cash, right? We're not talking about any forced equity or how you bought it or anything along those lines, right? Or appreciation over the years. Um, but that's like the main thing that we kind of look for and push. And like, it's my job to find those property. Like, it's my job to figure out what the property needs to hit those numbers. And then there's another guy that goes and hunts all the properties. If that makes sense.
Cool.
Yeah, I can. As you can tell, you started talking about Airbnb data, and I just went off.
Oh man, I mean, this is like for anybody who is interested in math or analytics or detective work or like problem solving. I mean, this is, this is right up my alley as well, right? I love to figure out like I'm all about optimization, right? So you guys, that's what you're looking for. You were looking for the best properties for the best purchase price that can perform and be optimized, right? Because, the good thing is like if you're one of those properties in Nashville bringing in $200,000 a year and something happens, okay, what's my worst case scenario? I drop down to 150, but the guys that were at 150 or at 100 grand go down to 50, like I'm still going to be winning, right?
Yeah.
Position yourself at the top with the best product. You'll always have that margin and that wiggle room to reduce prices if you have to, or whatever it might be, right? I was just watching this documentary on Netflix. They've got these untold story documentaries. I do like to
Yeah.
binge them at night, but the story of and one, the shoe company, like, what did Nike